Welcome to our lecture today. This unit on MIT5101, Computer Applications in Education. I'm your lecturer, Dr. Ricardi Joyce. So we are going to be with you for this session. So our topic today is a continuation of a previous session. And in this session today, we are going to focus on best practices and issues of concern. Best practices and issues of concern. So we begin by looking at what is the purpose, what is the relevance, what is the importance of having an attention to best practices and issues of concern. So what we are calling best practices, it is those things that makes you be efficient user of computers, be efficient supporter of others as they use computers. We said we are supporters of others, being in leadership position, being at a higher level of study, and of course expected to be leaders in our practice as educators or educational professionals. And the other part is issues of concern. We need to understand what are the issues of concern in relation to use of computers in education. When we call things issues and concern, it means it is things that we must be careful about, or things that are likely to cause distraction or to cause harm to others. So as we use computers, we must ensure we are safe, and what we are doing is also safe. So those are the issues of concern. So as we move on, we are going to be focusing on a number of best practices, a number of security issues, or rather security issues and ethical issues as key matters of concern. So that is our focus and the purpose of why we need this content, this understanding, this topic today. So we begin by looking at some of the best practices. So I said there are so many best practices we could focus on. But the first one I want to begin with is how we manage ourselves as users of computers. Sometimes we can have the knowledge, but when it comes to using the computer, you get confused because you are disorganized. So the first best practice is how to be organized. It sounds simple, but not obvious. One of the things, as we use computers, we shall be creating some documents. We shall be performing tasks, and any task you do in computing is you will be seeing, it means it resorts to a document. Your output will be in form of some content, some document. So this document in computer programs, we call them files. So when I write files here, it doesn't mean the physical file where you put your notes. This is a computer file. Is that output of a computer application that you compile the tasks you have achieved or the data you want to use. So how do you manage files? Folders. Folders are a bag to those files. It's equivalent to the bag you carry. You put all your books, then you put them in a folder to encompass that, to make them so safer. So folders in computing, again, they host your file for better management. So I want us to have the practice of using and also reminding others how to manage their files and the folders. That's where good practice begins. So how do you create? You need a bag, then so that then you shall have something to keep files. We need the folder. So when you use something program in a computer, you have some work that you save, your work. So when you store these, you store them in a file. So you create that file. And note that what you are saying, files are created within a drive. Drive is a storage facility. It could be a flash disk, it could be your hard drive, your C drive on the computer, or it could be any other storage device. It could be a network file if you're using file transfer protocol. We talked about FTP. So once you have those files in drives, is what then you create a folder. Most of the place we start by creating folder, you choose where to store the folder. You may choose it to be stored in a drive, and the most immediate drive we tend to use or space is the desktop before you move it to the more permanent drive. So when you're using the computer, we are going to be saying you right click, you will see an option for folder, and then you say new folder, And before I go to the next practice, when you create those folders, it will be called a new folder. We call them default names. What the computer does before you manipulate it. So we call it by default, it will be called new folder. So for you to be a better manager of your work in the computer, you need to do another good practice. Name your folders with meaningful names. This assignment for MIT5101, week 1, all level 1. So any work related to that lesson is in one folder. So give meaningful name by renaming your folder. So those are some of the practical tasks we shall be seeing. How to rename a folder. Of course, the most obvious command, if you right click, we shall practice on that. You'll see an option for renaming a folder. Again, on the files. Files, by default, when you work on a program, you have an option to save in all applications. In Windows-based system, the command comes as save. It is either an icon or through the menu if you are in Windows. So you use that command to save to create your file. So you have the content that contains your work, or that means that's your work, then you save. Then your file by default exists at that point. So when you save a file, it will also be given what we are calling a default name, the computer name. So learn to rename your files. It's assignment 1, so that is not called doc 1. It is assignment 2. You can give it your name, a date, a topical name, what you think is meaningful at that point. Remember, we said people drive usage of computer, so you make it a useful name, but it is your responsibility as a user to do so. So at that point, we have talked about how you can then manipulate your files and folders. Manipulation means you can rename them. We have already talked about that. Files and folders can also be moved to a different location, to a different drive. They can be copied when there is need. They can be deleted. And of course, deleting, take it with caution so that you don't delete what you require tomorrow. So you can always have an archive folder so that you don't delete important content. That's a good practice. So only delete things that you are sure you don't need them anymore. You can look for a drive for archiving. Again, we also need to think of efficient use of resources. Don't store garbage, don't store things that are obsolete. So you balance that. So that's some of the good practices. Again, I say there are so many good practices. Another good practice relates to the issues of concern we are going to look at. Good practice, again, here means be conscious of your environment. Be conscious of sustaining your purpose and focus. So by being conscious, you are going to be avoiding the harm that you can experience from the issues of concern we are going to look at. So when you're conscious of your environment, you know it is possible to have people with malicious intention who can interfere with your work, who can delete all your folders, who can go to your system in your institution and clear everything, who can have malicious intention of interrupting a service. So we are going to look at those as issues of concern. So that will be what I've said is about security. People who can do harmful things to your computer work, computer files, computer system. So those may relate to security issues. We are going to explore that now. The other part of the ethical issues, or rather the concern, is what we call ethical issues. Ethical issues means that there is potential for people. We are not saying it's animals who will come and do the harmful things. For people or the human beings to use computers with a bad intention, to commit crime, to destroy the work of others, to steal. So ethical issues may relate. You are misusing or using the work of others without permission, or you are trying to benefit from the work of others or to commit some crime using authorized means. So we have to be conscious of that, and that's what we are calling conscious of the environment. To us, this topic is important because we shall be in leadership position, we shall be policy makers, we shall be administrators in the education setup. So at that level, you have a lot of role to play to make sure these things don't destroy the best things we have gained from ICT, or the benefits that we get from various things that we have already explored so far. So the issues of concern, we start with security. So why do we need to be able to make our computers secure? One, purpose. I have already highlighted some of those aspects, but I'm going to revisit them to prevent data loss or information loss. So when somebody comes and clears your website, he's going to go away with the information, clears your database systems, clears your MIS. So it will disappear with all what you called data. So you have to secure, to make sure no authorized access. We are going to see some security threats. That means how your data can get lost. The other part is to prevent service interruption. So somebody may not delete your data, may not steal your system or steal from it, but they are going to interrupt service. And what we mean by service interruption, if you are using your service to allow students, like now as distance student, you access your learning resources online, you put your assessment online. So if the day you want to upload your assignment, the system is not available because somebody has hacked and denied the university the service, it has cut you off. It's like a road with a bridge, and the bridge has been cut off. So that's what we call service interruption, which leads to what we call denial of service. Remember, our purpose is to use IT to deliver a service. Whether the service is teaching students in the classroom, is administrative to support student access a portal like you do, or is for finance to facilitate financial management, all those are services. So you prevent service interruption. So the other part is on maintaining systems integrity. Sometimes we may have data stored, nobody has taken it away, nobody has interrupted our service, but the data you have does not maintain the right level of integrity. It is not accurate, it is not in the right format. So when you are not sure of whether your data is accurate, how many students you have in the system, whether a student can come and impose or become an imposter and assume they are student, or a lecturer can do so in the e-portal. So that is what we call about integrity, that nobody is going to manipulate your data. Again, those students who are there, when they are told to upload the assignment, it must go in the right format, with the right admission number. So issues of system integrity will be checked through that a student can only submit an assignment after they log in using their credentials, using their admission number. So if there's any other creation of something close to an admission number, but not already qualified in the system, then the system integrity takes care of that. System efficiency. So we take care of security to optimize efficiency. Some issues of security may interfere with efficiency. So when people access the system, the time they're not supposed to access, where they're supposed to access, they are likely to interfere with the traffic flow, to do things in the right way. So you are going to use security features to bar that misuse of the system so that we serve the purposes we meant to the optimum. So if there is security breaches like unauthorized access, it may affect the efficiency in terms of the service delivery. It may bring about delays, etc. Those are issues of efficiency. To promote accountability. Accountability means the system or the security features should allow you to be able to know who did what in your system, in your computer, and when they did it and what they actually did. So without that, your system is very insecure. So you must make people accountable, from your employees, from any other user you have, including your client. If it's a bank, you are using an online system, a mobile money system, do you have a way to tell who withdrew the money, how much they did, and when? So if those are features that we do have in the program. configured in a way that you are able to train your system users and what they do and how they do it. So without that, your system has a concern for security. So those are some of the common reasons or the key reasons. We may have others related to the same or as an extension to that. Now we move to the next aspect. We talked of this security and ethical issues. Specifically, what are we referring to? What are the various types of security issues that we may have? So we go to specific so that we say what you deny your service. So from a technical point or non-technical point or a combination, we want to look at these issues and understand them. So computer issues or security issues means we are vulnerable, we have threats. These threats or vulnerabilities could be technical, non-technical, or a combination. What do we mean by technical threats or vulnerabilities or exposure for security breach? That's what we are calling vulnerability. When they are technical, means those that are directly related to technology is what we are going to be seeing is what we are calling technical, like unauthorized access. Filers, they are technically affiliated or they are directly related to the technology. Non-technical means they are not purely technical, but they are more of social, assuming we have more of the head of the human being in computing. So they are non-technical, or they don't necessarily relate to the technology itself, but they affect the system, security, like user training. How much are your users trained to use the system? What is the culture of your organization so that people becomes trustworthy and nobody is attempted to cheat or to do what they are not supposed to do. It could be policy issues. What policy do you have as a non-technical or you don't have a complete policy or adequate that makes it become a non-technical issue that's a vulnerability. So all a combination of the two. Some of the vulnerabilities or the threats could be cutting across. So when we mean what I've explained about non-technical, it means we have talked of somebody who wants to have unauthorized access, and this one will be a perpetrator, like a hacker, or even your colleague who want to put some form of persuasion to let you allow them or to make them compromise your system. So somebody is, for example, is going to call you off a phone and tell you you have sent money to the wrong account. So that's a perpetrator who is doing what we call social engineering. So they are going to persuade you until you give your password through confusion or otherwise. You'll be sharing your security details, and then they'll be able to have unauthorized access. And technical, they may attack the software like the filers do. A hacker who is more of a system expert, and they may cause harm to your system or to your data. Or the hardware, somebody can come and literally destroy your cables, destroy your servers. So then they'll be doing a technical attack, or there'll be a threat that's technical. So, so those are the two categories. Now, within the two categories, we move further to looking at some specific ones that I've mentioned, like unauthorized access. Unauthorized access means you could be a hacker, or even within an organization. If you are working in a school with a computer system, you can have, each of you have levels of access. You are allowed maybe to access the system as a teacher, as a school manager, as a school bursar. But then, you as a teacher, you may be interested to know what does bursar do or the accountant do with this system. So you attempt to look for means that are not allowed. So unauthorized access means you are attempting to access a system of computer content without permission or without following the right procedure. Then the other example is hackers. Hackers, we have seen they can be part of, they are external, or they could also, you can have a worker who is also a hacker. So they can be external or internal. So what are they going to be doing? They may have malicious intention to destroy your content. We talked of data loss. They may also be able to manipulate your system to compromise or to overcome integrity issues, and they may also want to deny you service. So hackers are those people with malicious intention, maybe for gainful reasons. They want to hack your bank account and run away with money. Some are adventurers, others just want to cause harm. They're just malicious. So they're people who just hack. And then, not that they are gaining anything, they just want to cause destruction. Malware is about softwares like filers that are able to cause harm to your content, to your data, to make your system non-functional. So they can be transferred, or they can come to your system intentionally or unintentionally. So the people who use your computers, like your staff, your student, they may carry filers with their storage devices, with their computing devices. Or a malicious person, like a hacker, can install or attempt to attack, to bring malicious or other malware or filers to your system. That makes it non-functional or misfunctional, or fail to function in totality. Another example of threat or vulnerability, this one we call it more of a vulnerability. It has potential but not necessarily an immediate threat. When you have wireless system like Wi-Fi, also the mobile-based systems, they are more prone to attacks than wired networks. So wireless system need to be more keen. And when we say we are keen or we take care of them, we don't mean we don't use them because they are there for a benefit. We don't say you don't use them. We are saying you should be conscious that you're in the environment that's more vulnerable. So when you have Wi-Fi enabled, when you have mobile-based system, so you can do so many ways, like you are going to see how you manage these threats to make sure people are safe, all your users and your system is safe. The other thing is internal threats. So I draw your attention to this. When we talk about internal threats, this one key characteristic of this or component is your workers, your employees. Today, we have done a lot of efforts in bringing systems security to become more functional, to become more effective. But one thing that is hard to manage is the people. It's like managing a thief inside your house. How are you going to make sure your employees are not a threat? So we are not saying they are a threat, but they are more of a vulnerability. It's a potential exposure. So when you have employees who are not trustworthy, it could be your accountant and any other person dealing with valuable components in your system. How are you going to make sure they are not malicious, they are not destructive, they are not thieves? So we need to think about how to take care of internal threats. And that's one of the key issues that is affecting security in systems. You can manage any other thing, you can buy the latest antivirus, but how do you make sure your employees are of integrity and they are trustworthy? So how do we work around that in education setup? And what are the key areas of internal threats? Let's think about that in education. For example, we really value exams results. We have Kenya national exams. Those who are in Kenya, those who are elsewhere, they have a national examination center and that manages high-stake examination. So how are you going to make sure those things that are really valued are not a temptation to your employees, to the people who manage them? So we need to be very critical on what could be really an internal threat in the context of education. Money issues, we are also having money management issues. We have accounting division, they are also dealing some issues that could be of target in terms of internal threats. So you have to identify specific areas where internal threats are applicable. So it's not just meaning internal threats, it must be clearly illustrated where they may affect in our education systems. Examples, on the other hand, examples of ethical issues. So we have looked at what security threat is or what can become a vulnerability, but now ethical issues is another concern. Ethical concerns in education may relate abuse of intellectual property. In academic, we call it plagiarism. Somebody has stolen your work, your publication, and recopied it, etc. So that's one issue. People steal other people's innovative ideas. The other concern is privacy of information. So as you communicate using technology, you write memos within and to the outside, how sure are you somebody of malicious interest is not following you? So we need to attend to that. Now, at this point, let's focus on how you mitigate the security threats. So mitigating means we counter, and we use the word mitigation because we may not eliminate, but we can reduce the impact, the negative impact that may come with the abuse or the threats, the abuse of the system or the threats. So we have access control as one major area that can really help us to manage many security issues. We have encryption. Encryption means you have a means to disguise content for as it goes through online transmission, disguise or scrabble, so that no hacker will attack it on the way. Firewalls and intrusion detection systems, they are programs that detect who want to interfere with your system without authorization and bars them, prevents them from entry. So it does surveillance for you in the background. And filers, of course, counters filers. Training for users is very important again, and user support. When you have frustrated users who are clicking all over, they are not sure, they are going to mess up. They are going to leave their passwords exposed. They are going to leave their systems not signed out. So that way, they are more threatened. So when you train them, when you support them, then they are better off. And again, appropriate policy will have support, define the support system, define the penalties, define standard guidelines. So that is what we are going to be thinking as mitigating issues. Now, I want to give an assignment at this point. I want you to think about, we have talked of what we called ethical issues. That's very important to us as in education and as researchers, because we are at postgraduate level, abuse of intellectual property. So I want you to do this as an assignment. So you should discuss what are the implications of digitizing educational content. What are the implications of digitizing educational content in relation to intellectual property, in relation to abuse of intellectual property? What are the implications of digitizing educational content in relation to the potential for abuse on intellectual property? So that means you will first read on intellectual property, what it is in content creation, and then what is it means when it's digitized, is it more tempting? And then when you look at the implication, also go further in that assignment and explore how you can manage that as a challenge. How can you manage abuse of intellectual property in education, in educational context? How can you manage or overcome abuse of intellectual property so that people don't plagiarize others, etc. So at that point then, we conclude by saying as we move forward, we need to start thinking of what we need to do in this course, because we have two parts. We are listening to a lecture and we are also online. So another part of which is not an assignment but you are all. So make sure you refer to other resources that will be provided. Also ensure you actively participate online as guided, and also whether it's discussion chats, you have a responsibility to do that for you to learn more effectively. We shall be having practical session guided, so focus on that and follow what you'll be guided on. And to end, you'll be getting new materials, new feedback, so engage with that feedback. And for the assignment that I've given, partly is a self-assessment exercise, and partly it may form part of your continuous assessment. So follow guidelines and make sure you comply as required. At that point, we end our session and then think of what we have covered so far and what we have to do to consolidate our learning and to make sure we have achieved the expected goals. So have a good time. Thank you.
These televised lectures supplement our robust online learning going on our MKU online platform. You can view more on our televised lectures via our online platform. We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.